Okay, so anyone listening who's ever applied for a visa probably knows this already.
Mm-hmm.
But it can feel like you're jumping through a million hoops,
Yeah,
right? Like they ask for all this documentation.
absolutely.
And one of those things is always proof of travel plans,
Yeah.
like a round-trip flight itinerary.
Mm-hmm.
But hold on a sec. You need the visa to travel, but they want proof of travel to even consider giving you the visa.
It's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation, isn't
It
it?
is. It's totally a catch-22.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to deep dive into today, this whole
Yeah.
flight itinerary thing. Our source for this is Schengen Visa Itinerary, which
Mhm.
is a website that specializes in helping people get visas, especially Schengen visas,
Right.
so they know their stuff. And what we want to figure out is there a way to satisfy those visa requirements without actually having to book those flights up front?
Absolutely. And it's a very common question
Yeah.
that people have when they're applying for a visa.
Yeah, because who wants to shell out all that money for plane tickets when you don't even know if you're going to get to the visa?
Yeah, it's a big risk,
Huge risk.
especially if those tickets are non-refundable.
Exactly.
So
So let's talk solutions.
one of the solutions that people use and that's commonly recommended is what's called a flight reservation, or sometimes it's called a dummy ticket.
Yeah, I've heard that term dummy ticket,
Yeah.
but honestly, it does sound kind of
It sounds a little sketchy,
sketchy, yeah.
but it's not. It's a totally legitimate document. And, in essence, it looks like a flight ticket, but it doesn't have a price on it.
Okay. So it's basically like a mock-up of a ticket.
It's like a detailed outline of your proposed flight plan. So
got it.
it includes things like, points of, boarding and entry, dates of travel,
Okay.
and it even has a reservation ID that can be verified
Oh,
on the
really?
airline's website.
So it's not just some like fake thing I made up on my computer.
Yeah.
It's like an actual
It's an actual reservation.
reservation. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
So this begs the question, if it's an actual reservation, does that mean I'm actually obligated to then book that flight
No.
if I get the visa?
No, you don't. Oh, okay, good.
So that's the beauty of it.
So it really is just like showing my intent.
It's proving your intention to travel
Yeah.
and to return to your home country,
Okay.
but without having to actually purchase that ticket.
Got it. So in theory, an embassy could actually take that reservation ID,
Yes,
go to the airline's website and be like, yep, this is a real thing.
they can verify that. Yep.
Okay. So it's not like I'm trying to pull a fast one.
No, not at all.
I'm actually,
And I think it's important to be transparent with the embassy as well.
yeah.
And let them know
Yeah.
that you've got a flight reservation, not a confirmed ticket.
Yeah.
And explain to them that you're doing that to avoid any kind of financial risk
Exactly.
if your visa application isn't successful.
It's just being practical, right?
It's just being sensible.
Okay, good. So we've established it's legitimate, it's verifiable, and it's way less risky than buying actual tickets.
Right.
But how easy is it to get one of these flight reservations?
Yeah. So, they can be obtained through travel agencies.
Okay.
Or even online visa agencies like
Like Schengen Visa Itinerary.
Schengen Visa Itinerary. Yeah.
Okay, so they kind of specialize in this.
Yeah.
So they would know all the ins and outs of what different embassies are looking for
Exactly.
and the right format and all that.
Absolutely.
Okay, that sounds way less stressful than me trying to figure it out on my own.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I'm assuming these agencies probably offer other services too,
Absolutely.
besides just the flight reservation.
Yeah. So they can help you with things like
Okay.
hotel reservations and travel insurance, which are
Right.
often also required as part of the visa application process.
So they can basically help you with like the whole shebang.
The whole 9 yards.
Okay, so using a service like that sounds like a pretty good idea. But what if I get the visa and then my travel plans change? Am I locked into those dates on the flight reservation?
No, you're not.
Oh, good.
So that's the other beauty of
So
it.
it really is just a placeholder
It's a placeholder.
to show that you have the intent to travel,
Yeah,
but you're not actually bound to those specific dates.
correct.
Okay, that's a huge relief
Yeah,
because, things happen, plans change.
absolutely.
So it's good to know that I have that flexibility.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see the appeal of these flight reservations.
Yeah.
But it does make me wonder if embassies know people are using these and they're okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Why do they even bother requiring a flight itinerary in the first place?
Well, it's a good question, and it's one that's
Yeah.
being debated more and more these
Right.
days. Embassies have their reasons, right?
Yeah.
They want to ensure that visitors intend to return home and don't overstay their welcome.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's a standard part of the visa application process for many countries.
Yeah.
But The fact that so many people are turning to flight reservations suggests that maybe
Yeah.
the system could be a little bit more flexible.
Or maybe they could assess people's risk based on other things
Exactly.
besides just a flight itinerary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And some countries are starting to do that.
Really?
They're looking at factors like employment history, financial stability, ties to your home country,
Interesting.
to get a more comprehensive picture of an applicant's risk.
That makes a lot more sense to me, honestly.
Yeah.
So maybe there's hope for a more, streamlined system in the future.
Okay.
But until then, it sounds like flight reservations are a pretty solid way to navigate this whole requirement.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how they actually work.
Okay.
What kind of information is included in one of these flight reservations?
Yeah, so a typical flight reservation will include all the essential details of your flights, just like a regular ticket.
So like my name,
Yes.
flight numbers, departure, and arrival times.
Exactly. You'll have your passenger name, the airline you're flying with, specific flight numbers,
Okay.
and of course the departure and arrival cities and times.
Makes sense.
And it'll include a reservation code or a booking ID, which you can then use to verify the reservation on the airline's website.
Okay, so it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Does it also include things like seat selection or baggage allowance?
So that's where it differs slightly from a purchase ticket.
Okay.
A flight reservation may not include specific details like seat assignments or baggage allowance,
Right, that makes sense.
because those things are typically confirmed when you actually buy the ticket.
Yeah.
But the core flight details are there.
Okay, so it's got all the essentials
Yeah.
that the embassy needs to see.
Exactly.
Okay, good. But I'm curious, do I contact the airline directly to get one of these?
So while some airlines might offer temporary hold options, they often have time limits,
Okay.
and they may not be suitable for visa applications. The easiest and most reliable way to get a flight reservation is through those specialist travel agencies or online platforms
Got it.
that we mentioned earlier.
Like Schengen visa itinerary.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
They have systems in place to generate accurate and verifiable flight reservations that meet the requirements of different embassies.
So I just tell them my travel dates and where I want to go.
Yeah, you give them your desired travel dates and destinations, and they'll take care of the rest.
Perfect.
It's a pretty straightforward process.
And since they specialize in this kind of stuff, I assume they know all the little details and quirks
Exactly.
that different embassies might have.
They know all the ins and outs.
Okay. That makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I'd probably mess it up if I try to do it myself.
It can be quite tricky.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth using a specialized service.
Yeah, peace of mind is priceless.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered how to get one, what's included, but just to reiterate, when I'm submitting my visa application, I should be upfront about the fact that I'm using a flight reservation.
Absolutely. Transparency is key
Okay.
when it comes to visa applications.
So no trying to sneak it past them.
I know.
Just be honest and say, hey, this is what I'm doing and here's why.
Exactly.
Okay, good. I'm feeling a lot less stressed about this whole visa thing now.
Good.
But you know what? It's making me realize that this whole flight reservation thing is just one tiny piece of this giant visa application puzzle.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it
Oh, yeah.
than just the flight reservation.
There's so many other documents and requirements and probably a million other things I need to figure out.
Absolutely. The visa application process can be quite complex and intricate.
It can be a full-time job just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, it's a lot to navigate.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we're having this conversation then because
Yeah.
I need all the help I can get.
So what else is on your mind? What else are you worried about or curious about?
Well, just in general, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed just thinking about all the paperwork and the hoops to jump through.
I understand.
Any tips for making this whole process a little less daunting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most important things is to start early
Okay.
because visa processing times can vary widely,
Yeah.
and it's really important to give yourself enough time to gather those documents.
Right. No last-minute scrambling.
Exactly.
Okay, so starting early is rule number one.
Rule number one.
What else?
Another important tip is to be meticulous with your paperwork.
Okay.
Double check everything, make sure it's accurate.
So no typos, no missing signatures.
No typos, no missing information.
Okay.
Because any discrepancies or missing information can lead to delays
Oh, yeah, for sure.
or even rejection.
Got it. Attention to detail is key.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm starting to sense a theme here. Being organized and proactive is crucial for this whole visa application process.
You're absolutely right.
Okay, good.
And I think another important thing is to do your research and familiarize yourself with the specific requirements
Of the country I'm visiting.
of the country you're planning to visit.
Okay.
because every country has its own set of rules and regulations.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't assume they're all the same.
No, you can't. And
Yeah,
don't cut corners.
got it.
So do your research, understand the specific requirements.
I'm starting to feel like I need a giant checklist.
A checklist is a great idea.
Okay.
Keep track of everything.
Okay, so we've got starting early, meticulous paperwork, thorough research. What else can I do to increase my chances of success?
Well, one thing that's often overlooked is the importance of presenting a strong and convincing case.
Okay.
Remember, the embassy wants to be assured that you're a genuine traveler
Yeah.
with legitimate reasons for visiting their country.
So it's not just about filling out forms. It's
Yeah.
about, like, telling a story.
It's about painting a picture
Yeah.
of your travel plans.
And why I want to go to this specific country.
Exactly.
Okay, so no vague statements.
Yeah.
I need to be specific.
Be specific about your itinerary, the places you'll visit, the activities you'll engage in.
Got it. I need to show them that I've put thought and effort into this.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's all about backing up my claims with solid evidence.
Exactly.
And I guess I shouldn't be afraid to, like, show my personality a bit.
Let your passion for travel shine through.
Okay, I can do that?
Embassies are looking for individuals who are genuinely excited
Yeah.
about experiencing their culture.
Okay, I'm definitely excited, so
Excellent.
hopefully that'll come through.
Excellent.
Okay, so it's all about the details.
Every detail matters.
From the paperwork to the way I present myself.
Absolutely.
It all adds up.
It all paints a picture.
It's like a puzzle where every piece needs to fit perfectly to create the complete picture.
That's a great analogy.
Okay, I'm getting it. But there's one piece of this puzzle that still makes me nervous.
And what's that?
The interview.
Ah, yes, the visa interview.
Yeah.
A lot of people get nervous about that.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely the most intimidating part of the process.
Understandably so.
So any tips for, like, acing the interview?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Get in preparation is key.
Okay.
Review your application thoroughly.
Okay.
Be familiar with your travel plans
Mm-hmm.
and be prepared to answer questions about your purpose of travel.
Okay, so I need to know my stuff.
You need to know your stuff.
Yeah.
Be able to articulate your travel plans and motivations clearly and confidently.
Got it. No ums and ahs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Practice answering common interview questions.
Okay.
Rehearse your responses.
So it's like studying for an exam.
It's very similar.
Okay.
You need to know the material.
Okay, I can do that. But what if they ask me something I don't know the answer to?
Well, it's natural to feel a bit nervous.
Yeah.
But remember, the consular officer is not trying to trick you.
Okay.
They simply want to gather information to make an informed decision.
Okay.
So if you're unsure about a question, don't be afraid to ask for clarification. Or take a moment to think before responding.
So it's okay to pause and think. Okay, good.
It's better to pause and gather your thoughts than to rush into an answer that you might regret later.
That's reassuring. So they're not expecting me to be like a robot.
No, they're expecting you to be human.
Okay.
And remember, those nonverbal cues are important too. Maintain eye contact, smile,
Yeah.
project confidence, dress professionally.
Got it. So it's about the whole package.
Absolutely.
Not just my words, but my body language, my appearance.
Exactly.
It all contributes to the impression I make.
It all plays a role.
Okay, I'm starting to see the visa interview as less of an interrogation and more of an opportunity to showcase who I am as a traveler.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's a chance to demonstrate your passion for travel
Okay, I like that.
and your responsible traveler persona.
Authenticity is key.
Authenticity is key. Absolutely.
Okay, so no need to put on a fake persona, just be myself.
Just be yourself.
Okay, that's good to know. So we've talked about the basics, starting early, paperwork, research, interview tips, but let's circle back to the reason we're here today.
Yes.
Those tricky flight itinerary requirements.
Let's talk flight reservations.
Okay, so remind me again why embassies are so obsessed with seeing a flight itinerary in the first place.
So as we talked about earlier, embassies often require proof of travel plans in the form of a round-trip flight itinerary.
Right.
It's all about showing them that you have a concrete plan for entering and exiting their country,
Yeah.
and that you're not planning to overstay your welcome.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
But booking actual flights before getting your visa approval
Yeah.
can be a huge financial gamble.
Huge risk.
What if your visa gets delayed or rejected?
Exactly. You could be out a ton of money.
Exactly.
So that's the dilemma, right? You need the visa to travel, but they want to see proof of travel before they'll give you the visa.
It's a catch-22.
It's a catch-22.
But thankfully, there's a solution.
Flight reservations.
Flight reservations, exactly.
Okay, so remind me one more time. What exactly is a flight reservation in this context?
Yeah. So it's also known as a dummy ticket.
Right.
And essentially, it's a detailed outline of your planned flights
Okay.
that looks just like a real ticket, but without the commitment or cost
Got it.
of actually purchasing it.
So it's basically like a placeholder ticket?
A placeholder ticket, exactly,
Okay.
that you can use to demonstrate your travel intentions without actually having to buy a ticket.
And just to clarify, I can't actually use this to board a plane.
No.
Right.
No, it's purely for the visa application process.
Okay, so it's all about showing my intent
It's all about showing your intent.
without the financial commitment.
Exactly.
Got it. But I'm still a little fuzzy on how I actually get one of these flight reservations.
So there are a couple of ways to do it.
Okay.
Some airlines will allow you to place a temporary hold on a flight without actually purchasing it.
Okay.
This creates a reservation with a booking ID
Okay.
that you can use for your visa application.
So it's like a try before you buy kind of thing.
It is, however,
Okay.
these holds often have time limits.
They might not be suitable for all visa types.
Got it.
So the other and probably more reliable way to get a flight reservation
Okay.
is through a specialized travel agency
Okay.
or an online platform like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Schengen Visa Itinerary.
Mhm.
They have systems in place that can actually generate flight reservations specifically for visa applications.
Ah, so they've got the tech to make this happen.
They have the expertise and the technology
Okay.
to create these reservations.
So they can whip up a reservation that looks legit.
It looks legit, and it has a verifiable booking ID.
Oh, so I can actually check it on the airline's website?
You can check on the airline's website to confirm that it's a real reservation.
Okay, that's reassuring. So it's
Yeah.
not just some made-up document.
Yeah.
It's like a real thing.
It's a real reservation,
Okay.
but it's just not a purchase ticket yet.
Okay, that's the key difference.
That's the key difference.
Got it. So I'm assuming these agencies probably charge a fee for this service?
Yes, they do.
But it's typically much less expensive than buying an actual flight ticket.
Okay, that makes sense, especially considering it could save you a lot of money if your visa doesn't get approved.
Exactly.
Okay, so using a service like that seems like a no-brainer.
It can save you a lot of hassle and potentially a lot of money.
Okay, I'm convinced. Flight reservations are officially my new best friend
Right.
when it comes to visa applications. But before we move on, I'm curious, how long are these flight reservations typically valid for?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
The validity period can vary
okay,
depending on the provider and the airline,
sure,
but typically it ranges from a few days to a couple of weeks.
okay,
This gives you enough time to submit your visa application,
yeah,
demonstrate your travel intentions
got it.
without the reservation expiring.
Okay, good, so they have a decent shelf life.
They do.
Okay,
But what happens if my visa application takes longer than expected
yeah,
and my flight reservation expires before I get a decision?
that's a good question. I hadn't thought of that.
It's a valid concern.
Yeah,
Don't panic.
okay,
You can usually contact the provider and request an extension
okay,
or generate a new reservation with updated travel dates.
okay, so they're pretty flexible.
They understand the visa application process can take time,
Yeah,
so they're usually very accommodating.
okay, good to know.
Yeah,
So no need to freak out if things get delayed.
exactly. Just stay in communication with your provider.
Got it. Communication is key.
Communication is key.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot more confident about this whole process now.
Good.
But it does make me wonder
Mm-hmm.
if this whole flight reservation thing is such a common workaround
Uh-huh.
and embassies are okay with it,
Mm-hmm.
why even bother requiring a flight itinerary in the first place?
Well, it's a good question.
Yeah.
And it's one that's being debated more and more.
It seems a bit backwards, right?
Yeah, it can seem that way.
Like, shouldn't they assess our intentions based on other factors?
Well, that's the argument that many people are making.
Yeah.
They say that embassies should look at things like employment history, financial stability,
Yeah.
ties to your home country
Exactly.
to get a more holistic view of the applicant.
Because a flight reservation is just a piece of paper at the end of the day.
It's a piece of paper, exactly.
It doesn't necessarily guarantee anything.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a push for a more nuanced approach to visa requirements.
There is a movement towards a more individualized assessment.
Okay, so maybe there's hope for a more, sensible system in the future.
We can hope.
Yeah.
But until then, it seems like flight reservations are a pretty good way to navigate the current system.
Okay, so it's a workaround,
It's a workaround.
but it's a legitimate one.
It's a legitimate workaround
Okay, good.
that helps both the applicant and the embassy.
Right, it gives them what they need,
Exactly.
and it protects me financially.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot better about this.
Good.
So to wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yes.
It sounds like flight reservations are a practical
Absolutely.
and affordable solution to this whole flight itinerary dilemma.
They're a game changer for
Yeah,
visa applicants.
they really are.
And they offer a way to meet those requirements without the financial risk
Exactly.
of booking flights prematurely.
And the best part is they're completely legitimate.
They are.
As long as you're transparent with the embassy about what you're doing.
Honesty and transparency are key.
Okay, so those are my two big takeaways.
Yeah.
Honesty
Yeah,
and finding a reputable service to help me get the reservation.
absolutely.
Okay, I'm feeling much more confident about tackling this whole visa application process now.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks for all the insights.
You're welcome.
And now I think it's time to dive even deeper into how these flight reservations actually work
Okay.
and how to choose the right provider for your needs.
Let's do it. All right. So we've talked about why flight reservations are a smart move for visa applications. Yeah, it's like the perfect workaround for that whole flight itinerary requirement.
Exactly. You get to show the embassy your travel plans without the risk of buying actual tickets.
Okay, so for anyone just joining us, let's do a quick recap.
Sure.
What exactly IS a flight reservation in this context?
Well, it's basically a detailed outline of your intended flights that looks just like a real ticket.
Okay, so it's got my name, the airline, flight numbers, all that good stuff.
All that, yep. Departure and arrival times,
Okay.
even a booking ID that you can actually verify on the airline's website.
Wait, so the embassy could actually go online and see that my reservation is real?
They absolutely can, which adds a layer of legitimacy to your application.
Yeah.
But here's the key difference. It's not a purchase ticket yet.
Ah, okay, so it's like reserving a seat without actually paying for it.
Exactly. That's why it's sometimes called a dummy ticket, though honestly I prefer flight reservation. Sounds a bit more, professional.
Definitely less sketchy. Okay, so we've established it's legit, it's verifiable, and it's way less risky than buying actual tickets. But how do I actually get one of these flight reservations? Do I just call up the airline and say, hey, hold me a seat for a maybe trip?
Not quite. While some airlines do offer temporary hold options, they usually have time limits and might not work for all visa applications.
Okay, so what's the more reliable option?
This is where those specialized travel agencies or online platforms we mentioned earlier come in handy. They have systems that can generate flight reservations specifically for visa applications.
Ah, so it's like they have a direct line to the airline system or something.
Exactly. They can create a reservation that includes all the necessary details and that all-important booking ID that you can then check on the airline's website.
So it's all above board and totally legit.
Absolutely. They know how to format the reservations correctly and make sure they meet the specific requirements of different embassies.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better. But let's be real, some embassies might still be a bit wary of these flight reservations, right? I mean, they must know people are using them as a workaround.
You're right, and that's why transparency is so important. When you submit your application, be upfront about the fact that you're using a flight reservation and explain why. Most embassies understand that applicants want to avoid financial risk.
It's like saying, hey, I'm following the rules, but I'm also being smart about my money.
Exactly. And, using a reputable service also adds a level of credibility. They know how to present the information in a way that embassies are comfortable with.
Okay, that's reassuring. So transparency and a reputable service. Those are my two key takeaways so far. But how do I actually choose a reputable service? There are probably tons of companies out there claiming to do this.
Yeah, it's definitely a good idea to do your research. Start by checking their website, read online reviews, see how long they've been in business and what kind of experience they have.
Right, because like with anything online, there are bound to be some shady operators out there.
Exactly. And here's a big red flag. If a company promises guaranteed visa approval or offers prices that seem way too good to be true, steer clear.
Okay, that makes sense. No one can guarantee a visa, and those super low prices usually mean there's a catch.
Exactly. You also want to pay attention to their communication. Are they responsive to your inquiries? Do they answer your questions clearly and thoroughly?
Yeah, no shady business practices. I want a company that's easy to work with and upfront about everything.
Absolutely. And speaking of upfront, make sure they provide reservations with verifiable booking IDs. You should be able to check that ID on the airline's website to confirm the reservation actually exists.
Okay, so I can double check their work, which makes me feel a lot more confident. Anything else I should be looking for?
Oh yeah, data security is crucial. Make sure their website is secure and they use encryption to protect your personal and financial information.
Right, I don't want my info floating around out there in cyberspace.
Exactly. So to sum it up, look for a company with experience, good reviews, transparent communication, verifiable reservations, and strong security practices.
Got it. I'll keep all that in mind. Okay, so now I'm feeling pretty good about finding a reliable flight reservation service, but I'm also realizing that this is just one small piece of the visa puzzle. There's probably a whole lot of other stuff I need to figure out.
Oh yeah, the flight reservation is just one document among many that you'll likely need for your visa application.
Right, every country has its own set of rules and requirements. Where do I even begin?
Well, first of all, don't panic. We're going to break it all down for you.
Right.
And the most important thing is to start early.
Okay, starting early is definitely at the top of my list. I'm a notorious procrastinator, but when it comes to something as important as a visa, I know better than to wait until the last minute.
You got it. So besides the flight reservation, some common documents you'll probably need include a valid passport, a visa application form, passport-size photos that meet the country's specific requirements.
And
Okay, wait, pause for a sec. My passport, how long does it need to be valid for? I've heard different things. Great question. Most countries require at least 6 months of validity remaining from your planned return date, but some might require a full year.
okay, so definitely need to double check that. I don't want to get all the way there and get turned away because my passport's expiring soon.
Absolutely. And then there's the visa application form itself. Each country has its own unique form, so make sure you download the correct one from the embassy or consulate's website.
Okay, so no cutting corners or using a generic form. Got it. What about those passport photos? Any tips for those?
Definitely pay attention to those specific requirements. Things like background color, facial expression, even whether you can wear a head covering or not.
Okay, attention to detail is key. So we've got the passport, the form, the photos. What else?
You'll likely need proof of accommodation, so a hotel reservation, an Airbnb confirmation, or a letter of invitation if you're staying with someone.
Okay, that makes sense. They want to know where I'm sleeping.
Exactly. And then there's proof of financial means.
Ah, the money talk. What do they usually ask for?
Bank statements, credit card statements, sometimes a letter from your employer stating your salary.
So they basically want to make sure I can afford to be in their country and won't end up, living on the streets.
Exactly. They want to ensure you can support yourself financially during your trip. And some countries also require proof of travel insurance.
Okay, so it's like a whole financial background check. I'm starting to feel like I'm applying for a loan, not a visa.
Uh-huh. I know it can be a lot, but remember, each document serves a purpose. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, there's always help available.
Oh yeah, like those travel agencies that specialize in visas.
Exactly. They can walk you through the process, help you gather the right documents, and even submit your application on your behalf.
Okay, maybe I should look into that. It sounds like it could save me a lot of stress and potential mistakes.
Definitely worth considering. And no matter what, remember to be organized. Make a checklist, gather your documents in advance, and keep track of deadlines. Got it. Stay organized, stay ahead of the game. So once I have all my ducks in a row, what's next? Do I have to physically go to the embassy or can I do it all online?
Well, that depends on the country and the specific visa you're applying for.
Okay, so I'll need to do my research and figure out the specific procedure for my destination. What about the waiting game? How long does it typically take to get a visa approved?
The million-dollar question. Sadly, there's no easy answer. Processing times vary wildly, from a few days to weeks, even months in some cases.
Oh, okay, so patience is key. No last-minute trips for me.
Definitely plan ahead. And while you're waiting, keep an eye on your email or the online portal if they have one for any updates.
So basically, don't ghost the embassy. They might need more info from me.
Exactly. They might ask for additional documents or even request an interview.
Speaking of interviews, that's the part I'm dreading the most. Any tips for surviving that encounter?
Absolutely. The key is preparation. Review your application thoroughly, be familiar with your travel plans, and practice answering common interview questions. So it's like a job interview, but for a travel visa.
Exactly. The consular officer wants to see that you're a genuine traveler with legitimate reasons for visiting their country, that you have the financial means to support yourself, and that you intend to return home after your trip.
Okay, so I need to be able to articulate all that clearly and confidently. No pressure.
You got this. Highlight your ties to your home country, your travel experience, and your genuine interest in their culture.
So it's not just about spitting out facts, it's about showing my personality and my passion for travel.
Exactly. And remember, those nonverbal cues matter too. Maintain eye contact, smile, and dress professionally.
Okay, so it's about the whole package. My words, my body language, even my appearance.
Exactly. You want to create a positive and memorable impression.
Okay, challenge accepted. I'm starting to see the interview as less of an interrogation and more of a chance to connect with someone who shares my love of travel.
That's the spirit. And even if you get a little nervous, just remember to be yourself, be honest, and answer the questions thoughtfully.
Got it. Authenticity is key. Okay, I'm feeling a lot more prepared now. So, we've covered a ton of ground here. The flight reservation, all the other documents, the interview, but let's zoom back out for a minute.
Sure.
This whole system of needing a flight itinerary before you even know if you can travel, it feels a bit counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, it's a common complaint.
Like, why can't embassies assess our travel intentions based on other factors, our travel history, our finances, our ties to our home country? It seems like those things would be more reliable indicators than a simple flight reservation.
You're absolutely right. And thankfully, some countries are starting to explore alternative assessment methods.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Yeah. They're starting to look at things like employment history, income level, property ownership, family ties, even social media presence in some cases.
Wow, so they're getting pretty high-tech with their investigations. But it does seem like a more holistic approach, right? It's not just about one piece of paper. It's about looking at the bigger picture.
Exactly. And it's all about assessing risk more accurately.
So maybe there's hope for a more nuanced and flexible visa system in the future.
Fingers crossed. But until then, it seems like flight reservations are still a valuable tool for navigating the current system.
Yeah, they're like the secret weapon for visa applicants. Okay, well, I'm feeling a lot more empowered and optimistic about this whole process now.
That's great to hear. And remember, knowledge is power. The more you understand about the visa process, the smoother and less stressful your journey will be.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into flight reservations for visa applications.
We have?
And honestly, my head's spinning a little bit.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It is, but in a good way.
Good.
Like, I'm feeling much more informed and prepared
That's the goal.
to tackle this whole visa process.
Absolutely.
But just to recap, for anyone who might have missed the first two parts,
Sure.
what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember about flight reservations and visas?
I think the biggest takeaway is that flight reservations can be a real lifesaver when it comes to visa applications. They give you a way to meet those pesky flight itinerary requirements without having to actually book the flights up front.
Right, which is a huge relief, financially speaking.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the stress and the risk out of the equation.
It does.
Because, let's face it, who wants to shell out hundreds or even thousands of dollars on plane tickets
Yeah.
when you don't even know if you're going to get the visa?
Exactly. That's just asking for trouble.
It is.
So flight reservations are like the safety net.
Yep.
They're the visa applicant.
They're a safety net, they're a smart move,
Yeah.
and they're completely legitimate as long as you're upfront with the embassy.
Right. Honesty and transparency are key.
Absolutely.
Okay, so flight reservations good, shady dealings bad.
Exactly.
Got it. But, even though we've talked a lot about flight reservations,
Yeah.
I'm realizing that they're just one small part of this whole visa application process.
They are. There's a lot more to it than just the flight reservation.
Yeah, it's like a giant puzzle with a million pieces.
It's a complex process.
It is. And to be honest, I'm still feeling a little overwhelmed just thinking about all the other documents and requirements.
I understand it can be daunting.
It can. So any final words of wisdom for our listeners who might be feeling the same way?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to remember that you don't have to go through this alone.
Okay.
There are resources available to help you.
Like those travel agencies that specialize in visas.
Exactly.
Okay.
They've got the experience. They know the ins and outs of different embassies.
Yeah.
They can help you gather the right documents, avoid common mistakes.
Right. So it's like having a professional guide you through the process.
Exactly. It takes a lot of the stress and the guesswork out of it.
Okay. So if you're feeling lost or overwhelmed, don't hesitate to reach out for help.
Absolutely. There's no shame in asking for assistance.
Okay. Good to know. So as we wrap up this deep dive into flight reservations for visa applications,
Yes.
what's the one piece of advice you want our listeners to walk away with?
I would say do your research, be prepared, and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Okay, those are some solid words to live by.
Absolutely.
And you know what? It's inspiring to know that some countries are starting to experiment with more flexible ways of assessing visa applicants.
Yeah, it's a positive step.
It is. It gives me hope that maybe one day this whole visa process will be a little less, headache-inducing.
Hopefully we can dream.
We can. But until then, we've got flight reservations.
too.
And a whole arsenal of tips and tricks
Absolutely.
to help us navigate this crazy world of international travel.
That's what we're here for.
Okay, on that note, I think it's time to sign off.
Okay.
Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into flight reservations for visa applications.
My pleasure. It was great to be here.
And for all of you listening, happy travels.